morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you to today's session. So let's start with Unit 11, Amazing People. So by the end of this unit, students will be able to read an article about athletes with disabilities, write a paragraph on a disabled person you like, or an email to arrange for a job interview. Listen to a radio interview about equal opportunities. Practice speaking through making complaints and polite responses. And as for the language focus, is all about relative clauses. Last but not least, as for the life skills, you need to promote your ability or personal skills when we come to respect for diversity. نحن نحترم الاختلاف, creativity, and cooperation. So, before we move on to the main topic of today's unit, I would like you to watch this video and try to guess today's topic or what we will be talking about.
To become an award-winning Paralympian is an outstanding achievement. These athletes battle against physical disabilities to prove their strength, stamina, and determination. Competing in the Paralympics often means a life dedicated to training and often requires a lot of sacrifices to be successful. Even simple tasks can be difficult with a disability, which is why they are so inspiring. Many Paralympians inspire people to persevere to achieve their dreams. They often dedicate their time to promoting their sport and helping young people find opportunities to train.
All right. So, can you guess what we will be talking about? So, amazing people who are making a lot of achievements in their lives. So, let's start with the new vocabulary. Achieve. So, achieve is to be successful in doing something good. Achievement. So, this is the noun for it. So, achieve is the verb, الفعل. Achievement is a noun. It's something good that you have done successfully. Compete. What do you mean by compete? It's taking part in a race or a competition. Kung Fu. So the Kung Fu is the Chinese sport which involves fighting with your hands and feet. Middle. So the middle is metal, disc that you can win when you do or play a sport. Muscle. What do you mean by muscle? It's something inside your body that you use in order to move. Powerlifting. So powerlifting is a sport where people lift weights above their heads. Of course, weights اللي هي الأوزان, رياضة رفع الأثقال or ألعاب القوى البدنية. Wheelchair. So the wheelchair is a chair with wheels used by someone who cannot walk. Spina bifida. This is some sort of a disease or in medicine في مجال الطب they call it متلازمة الصلب المشقوق or تشقق العمود الفقري, أو هو basically عيب خلقي في عيب خلقي في العمود الفقري. So it's basically a serious condition in which part of the spine is not correctly developed at birth, leaving the nerves in the back without any protection. So polio is, as you can see, it's شلل الأطفال. So it's a disabling and life-threatening disease caused by poliovirus. اللي هو فيروس شلل الأطفال. Olympics. So the Olympian Games, it's the greatest of the games or festivals of ancient Greece. That's the history of it, and it's usually held every 4 years. So again, it's again a modern international sports competition held every 4 years, and of course it includes several sports. Paralympics. So we have Olympics and we have Paralympics or Paralympic Games. They are الألعاب الأولمبية لذوي الهمم. And when we talk about the disabled people, we never use, or we try not to use the word ذوي الإعاقة. So we don't like this word anymore, or we don't use this word anymore. And this is what we call it in the language. We call it euphemism. خليني أشرح الجزئية دي بالعربي لأنه it might be a bit difficult or complicated for some of you. The word euphemism في اللغة بنسميها التلطف اللغوي. يعني الكلمة بدل ما هستخدم كلمة تكون صادمة للشخص اللي قدامي، لا، ممكن أعبر عنها بأسلوب ألطف، وده بنسميه euphemism، التلطف اللغوي or euphemistic expression، اللي هو تعبير فيه نوع من أنواع التلطف اللغوي. علشان كده احنا مش بنسميهم دلوقتي ذوي الإعاقات، الكلمة دي ما بقتش تستخدم anymore most likely، يعني بقينا نقول ذوي الهمم. Okay, so Paralympics, it's الألعاب الأولمبية لذوي الهمم, and they are simply a series of international contests for athletes with disabilities that are associated with and held following the Summer and Winter Olympic Games. So here we have the verbal collocations, and the verbal collocations المتلازمات اللفظية، يعني verb معين بيجي مع noun معين. For example, success, it's النجاح. So we can say achieve success, to be a success, for example, or be a successful person. Arrange a meeting, come fourth، يحتل المركز الرابع، come first, come second, and so on. Give a talk or give a challenge، بيمثل تحدي أو يلقي خطبة. To have a disability, to have an impact, to have ramps, to have positive effects on. So have, we can use it with all these nouns. Do something good، يبقى أنا بعمل حاجة كويسة. Do or play a sport، نلعب رياضة معينة. Make a difference. Play in a wheelchair، that means I'm playing a certain sport in a wheelchair. Practice sport. Run a campaign، يدير حملة معينة. Take a lift up or take part in. Again, these are take a lift up، يصعد بالأسانسير. Take part in، you participate، احنا بنشارك في الحاجة دي. Win, we can say win a medal or win a prize. All right, so let's have some practice. Becoming a world champion in your sport is an amazing dot. So think about the answer. Feel free to take down some notes and that we can check the answers at the end. Number 2, the government launched a or an dot to improve public transportation in the city. Competition, achievement, campaign, charity. Number 3, our company is dots with foreign companies to increase its sales. Number 4, like ordinary people, people with dots can play sports and win medals. Take a few seconds to think about the answers, take down some notes, and let's move on to check your answer. So becoming a world champion in your sport is an amazing achievement. The government launched a or an to improve public transportation campaign. أطلقنا حملة. Okay. Our company excuse my voice. Our company is with foreign companies to increase its sales. So competing بنتنافس معاها. Number 4, like ordinary people, people with disabilities can play sports and win medals. All right. Now you're going to read the stories of 3 athletes with disabilities. Which sentence describes an athlete with a disability? So we're going to read the sentences and think about them. So the athlete with a disability, number A, an athlete who is not a member of the national team. Number B, an athlete who has a physical difference that makes it difficult to do something. Or an athlete who is too young to participate in the Olympic Games. So as you can see here, so the correct answer is number B. So the athlete with disability is an athlete who has a physical difference that makes it difficult to do something. So حد عنده نوع من أنواع الإعاقة الجسدية، في مشكلة عنده physical في جسمه بتخليه صعب إن هو يبتدي يعمل أي حاجة معينة. Okay, so now we will move on to the comprehension. But before we start, I want you to think about these questions. Or think about the answer for these questions. Number 1, which 5 sports have they competed in? So we're going to read about 3 athletes with disabilities, and we need to think about these questions while reading the comprehension. So again, let me clarify this part. حتى في الامتحان واحنا بنمتحن المفروض او هقرا passage comprehension passage, it's better to get a closer look at the new vocabulary. Number 2 is to read the questions first in order to have an idea about what I'm going to read about. يبقى عندي فكرة أنا هقرا عن إيه. ف let's have a look at these questions. Number 1, which 5 sports have they competed in? So we need to know the sports. What have all 3 athletes done? إيه الحاجات اللي عملوها؟ Number 3, what qualities do these athletes share? إيه المزايا أو المميزات الشخصية اللي عند الأثليتس دول؟ So let's start with Mahmoud Mohammed Yusuf. So Mahmoud Mohammed Yusuf was a champion in Kung Fu and won many medals in the sport at secondary school. After a terrible car accident, he now has a disability, which means he has to use a wheelchair. Mahmoud cannot walk again, but that has not stopped his love of sport. He decided to practice a sport which you can play in a wheelchair, and he became very good at wheelchair tennis. He has competed in many international wheelchair tennis competitions and became one of the best wheelchair tennis players in Egypt. That is an amazing achievement, but Mahmoud has not stopped there. He also helps people who are in wheelchairs to stay fit and gives talks to help other people with disabilities. Okay, so let's move on to Amania Ali. Amania Ali is an Egyptian. I'm sorry. Amania Ali is an Egyptian Paralympic powerlifter. Of course, we talked about powerlifting, ألعاب القوة البدنية أو رفع الأثقال. So Amania Ali is an Egyptian Paralympic powerlifter who won a bronze medal in the 2016 Paralympic Games in Brazil in 2016. A baby had an illness called polio, and we talked about polio. We said it's شلل الأطفال when she was younger, and this affected the muscles in her feet. She didn't start she didn't start powerlifting until she was 20. Although she has always loved the sport and she achieved her Paralympic success in Brazil aged 40. And at a very difficult time, her father died 2 days before the competition. So she wanted to win the medal for him. She also came fourth in London Paralympic Games in 2012. Tanni Grey-Thompson, she's a British Paralympian wheelchair racer who has a medical condition called spina bifida. She's unable to walk, so she uses a wheelchair to get around. Tanni first competed in the 400 meters and wheelchair basketball at the Paralympics in Seoul in 1988. Tanni won 16 Paralympic medals in the athletics events from the 100 meters up to the 800 meters, including 11 gold medals. Since she retired from athletics in 2004, Tanni has worked for many different organizations which help people, especially disabled people and women, to enjoy the benefits of sports. Okay, so let's go back to the questions we were talking about. So which 5 sports have they competed in? Of course, we have Kung Fu, wheelchair, tennis, powerlifting, basketball, and athletics. What have all 3 athletes done? They have competed in the sports competitions and won medals, of course. What qualities do these athletes share in love of sport and a determination, إصرار, to do well despite their abilities, despite their disabilities? Research successful disabled people and choose one person to do a project about. So, for example, we have Ibrahim Hamato and Fatma Omar. Finally, we have Taha Hussein. So Ibrahim Hamato, he is an Egyptian table tennis player who has no arms. So maybe you can explore more about his character. We have Fatma Omar, and Fatma Omar is an Egyptian power lifter who was disabled by polio. Taha Hussein is an important Egyptian writer who was blind, and I think most of us, we are all familiar with Taha Hussein. So the idea of the project or the writing project, for example, we can find out more information about those people. So I want you to think about these questions. So number one, what is the person's name, for example? So we need to know the name of that person. What is her disability? نوع الإعاقة الموجودة إيه أو نوع الصعوبة اللي عنده التحدي اللي عنده إيه بالظبط. Where is he or she from? البلد اللي هو منها. What is his or her job? وظيفته أصلا إيه أو إيه اللي يعني. What is his or her greatest achievement? إيه أكبر إنجاز حققه؟ How does he or she inspire other people? وإزاي ممكن يكون الشخص ده مصدر إلهام لغيره؟ So these are some of the ideas that we can think about while writing about those people. Of course, feel free to add more ideas. Let's get some practice. So we have a text, and we need to complete the text with these words. Feel free to take a screenshot if you want, and then we move on to think about the answers. So some amazing athletes compete in different sports even when they have a disability. For example, some play tennis in wheelchair. The playing area is the same as for other tennis competitions, but the players need to have strong muscles in their arms to move around and to hit the ball. The best players enter the Paralympic Games, but few achieved as much success as Esther Berger, who is from Netherlands. She won 4 gold medals between 2000 and 2012. When we come to the sports or the person who is playing that sport, so some sports end with or end in ing, and the person usually ends in er. So we need to think about Olympic sports and see how can we form these or get the name of the sport or the name of the person out of this verb. Many Olympic sports have always been part of the modern games, such as, of course, cycle is gonna be cycling. So you will cross out هنحذف الإي and you add ing. So such as cycling and swimming. And of course, when we come to swimming, we will double M, okay? Swimming. Some of the most famous Olympians are some of the most famous Olympians are runners because the running is the name of the sport. Runner is the person, such as Bolt and Mo Farah. New sports are sometimes added to the games. For example, windsurfing became an Olympic sport in 1984 and snowboarding in 1998. Other sports are not part of the Olympic Games. For example, powerlifting. That means that great Egyptian powerlifters. So here I'm talking about Egyptian powerlifters. I'm talking about the person. Like Sharif Osman can only compete in the Paralympics. So some of the words it depends on the context. يبقى بناء على النص اللي عندي هختار whether I'm talking about the person or the sport. All right, let's move on to lesson 2. And let's start with a new vocabulary. Highs and lows, we call it in Arabic أفراح وأطراح. That means the bad and good times, or refers to the successful and unsuccessful times. Activist, so the activist is ناشط. He or she is a person who is someone who tries to change things. So you have your own idea, you have your own principles, and you are fighting for them. Ramp is a sloping service joining two places of different levels. Campaign. Campaign, this is حملة, okay, حملة تسويقية, حملة إعلانية, and so on. It is to work in an organized way to change things. So before we start or we dig deeply in lesson 2, I want you to think about these questions. What do we mean when we talk about equal opportunities? الفرص أو المساواة أو العدالة في توزيع الفرص. What do we mean by this? Do you know anyone who works for a charity or another organization that tries to help people either personally or from the media? Okay, so let's think about question number one. What do you mean by equal opportunities? So this means that everyone has an equal chance to succeed regardless of their background or personal circumstances. يبقى أنا عندي عدالة في الفرص وكل واحد بياخد فرصته بغض النظر عن خلفيته الثقافية الاجتماعية التعليمية and so on. What about people who are working for charity or an organization? I gave you some examples of charity organizations in Egypt, and of course, you can guess if there is someone who is very famous working there and so on. So, for example, Heart Foundation of Magdi Yaoub, I think you are familiar with it. Um, جمعية القلب للسير مجدي يعقوب. So it's non-governmental organization uh, with official registration in Egypt, and it's currently managing one of the outstanding projects. Um, طبعا جمعية مجدي يعقوب أو الجمعية الخيرية السير مجدي يعقوب أسسها عشان طبعا يعني لعلاج مرضى القلب سواء بقى خاصة الأطفال يعني. طبعا سير مجدي يعقوب غني عن التعريف. Food Bank in Egypt. بنك الطعام المصري. So Egypt as a whole struggles with hunger sometimes or in some areas. So the Egyptian Food Bank wants to give all Egyptian families access to enough food so they can lead regular and decent lives. زي ما كنا بنعمل في رمضان مثلا. So the Food Bank بنك الطعام المصري. So they make sure that everyone gets enough food. رسالة and Foundation of مصر الخير جمعية مصر الخير. So these are all examples of charity organizations in Egypt. Now, I want you to listen to an interview with Leila about a charity organization, and I want you to take the correct answer. So let's have a look at these sentences and see what does Leila think about them. So according to Leila, working for a charity is a familiar job, or working for a charity is a waste of time, or it is not rewarding to work for a charity. Number four, not everybody like to work for charities. So listen carefully and see which one is the correct answer.
Nadia. Hello everyone and welcome to the podcast. Every week we talk to a different guest about their job. Today, we have a very special guest who's a charity activist from Egypt. Her name is Leila Elbaz. Leila, who has been an equal opportunities campaigner for almost 10 years now, is here to talk about the highs and lows of trying to change the world. Thank you very much for joining us, Leila. Leila, great to be here, Nadia. Nadia, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Leila, where are you from? Leila, I'm from Alexandria, which is a city in the north of Egypt, but I work in Cairo. Now, Nadia, what did you study? Leila, I studied sociology, which I found really interesting. Nadia, and how did you get into working for charities supporting equal opportunities? It's not something that everyone does for living, is it? Leila, no, I guess it isn't, but it's a brilliant job. I would recommend it to all young people because you can really make a difference squared. That's why I love it so much. I started campaigning for disabled people when I was at university actually. One of my best friends was disabled and she used a wheelchair. I noticed that she was having lots of problems just trying to get from one classroom to another, or from the library to the cafeteria. There were steps everywhere and hardly any lifts or ramps to help disabled people get from one floor to the next. Nadia. Wow, that's awful. Leila. Yes, I know, so my friend and I decided to try to make changes in our university. We asked the teachers to talk to the people who were in charge of the university about the issue, and They did. Nadia. What happened next? Layla. Well, after about a year, we got 4 new lifts and lots of ramps. The university also promised to think about disabled students when they build new parts of the campus or change existing buildings. Nadia. That's excellent. Layla. When I finished studying, I got a job at a charity which helps disabled young people find jobs. That was really interesting. Nadia. But now you campaign for equal opportunities for a wider range of people squared, not just people with disabilities squared. Is that right? Layla. Yes, that's right. Now I work for an organization called Open Eyes, which campaigns in lots of different areas. We try to ensure that people who are different to other people, in one way or another, still have the same chances in life. Nadia. That sounds like great work to be doing, but is there anything you don't like about your job? Layla. Well, I don't like it when you think you're going to succeed, but in the end, you don't. And, of course, not all of our work is exciting. We have to do paperwork too, you know.
Okay, so I hope you get the idea out of the listening text. So basically, so according to
Nadia.
Layla, not everybody likes to work for charities. Not all the people like to work for charities. Now let's move on to the language focus. So you have a number of sentences, and I want you to think about which sentences refer to people, which sentences refer to things or places, which word do we use to refer to the people, and which word do we use to refer to the things or places. So here we have these 4 sentences, and let's discuss it together. So today we have a very special guest who is a charity activist from Egypt. Uh, Number B, Layla, who has been an equal opportunities uh, campaigner for almost 10 years, is here to talk about trying to change the world. Of course, these 2 sentences, we are talking about people. Number C, I am from Alexandria, which is a city in the north of Egypt. I work in Cairo now. Number D, when I finished studying, I got a job at a charity which helps disabled young people find jobs. Of course, when we talk about things or places, so C and number D, they are examples of things or people. Of course, when we refer to the people, we use who. When we refer to things or places, we use which, or where, of course. Okay, so let's have a look at these sentences, but from a totally different point of view. Let's see if the information the sentence provides, if it's important or necessary or unnecessary, and it's an extra information. So number 8. So we have in sentences A and Z, basically the relative clause gives us necessary information. So number 8, today we have a very special guest who is a charity activist from Egypt. So this is a necessary information. I need to know who is this guest. مين ضيف الحلقة النهاردة. So we cannot cross out such an information because it's very necessary. What about number D? When I finished studying, I got a job at a charity which helps disabled young people find jobs. Again, it's necessary information. We cannot cross out any part of the sentence. What about number B? Layla, who has been an equal opportunities campaigner for almost 10 years, is here to talk about trying to change the world. I can simply cross out أقدر ألغي كل relative clause دي who has been. If I cross it out of the sentence, the meaning is still complete. Layla is here to talk about trying to change the world. يبقى المعنى عندي متأثرش. Number C, I am from Alexandria, which is a city in the north of Egypt. My work in Cairo now. Now, again, if I cross out, which is a city in the north of Egypt, so we can cross it out. نقدر نلغيها وبالتالي مش هيأثر على المعنى. I'm from Alexandria, which is, but I work in Cairo now. So the relative clause, sometimes we use it to add a new information, and this information is necessary, and sometimes it adds extra information, معلومة إضافية, so I can cross it out. And it doesn't affect the meaning, of course. ما بيأثرش على المعنى. Alright, so defining relative clause gives necessary information about a person or thing. يبقى relative clause في منها نوع ده لازم بيدي معلومة إضافية، والمعلومة دي مهمة جدا عن الشخص أو الشيء. يعني مثلا Mr. Kamel is the man that or who teaches us Arabic. يبقى هنا مهم جدا أقول إن مستر كمال بيدرس لنا عربي، مش English ومش أي مادة تانية. David Copperfield is the book that or which we read last year. So here this is defining relative clause. هي هنا بتضيف معلومة إضافية ومعلومة ضرورية. بتزود معلومة ضرورية جدا إن احنا نعرفها. David Copperfield is the book that we read last year. يبقى السنة اللي فاتت درسنا أو قرينا ديفيد كوبرفيلد، ما قريناش مثلا أوليفر تويست أو غيره. Non-defining relative clauses with commas give us more information about the person or thing. Mr. Kamel, who teaches us Arabic, lives in Cairo. So I can cross out this part. ممكن ألغي الجزء ده خالص وأقول Mr. Kamel lives in Cairo. David Copperfield, which we read last year, is a very interesting book. So David Copperfield, which we read last year, اللي قريناه السنة اللي فاتت دي أنا ممكن ألغيها خالص. I can cross it out. And I can say David Copperfield is a very interesting book. يبقى if it's non-defining relative clause with commas, so we can add commas. Simply we can cross it out of the sentence and it doesn't affect the meaning. When we come to the notes, so who refers to the persons and which refers to the things, that can replace who and which in the defining relative clause. Which and where refer to places. So I want you to notice the difference between these sentences. That's the shop where my brother works. That's the shop which my brother works in. So if you notice, we can replace أنا ممكن نستبدل where for which, in or in which, for example. Or that's the shop which sells toys. يبقى أنا هنا مش بتكلم على الشop as a place، لا I'm describing or I'm talking about it as something، يعني شيء مثلا. That's the shop which sells toys. So this is some sort of a summary for the relative clause. So in order to wrap up, defining relative clause give us important and necessary information about people, things, or places. They tell us about the person, thing, or place. So they add new information or necessary information. Usually we don't use commas around the clause. طبعا مش بنستخدم معاها commas خالص. For example, the man who or that lives next door is a teacher. This is the photo which or that shows our school. The town where I was born is in the south of Egypt. Of course, in formal writing or informal written English, and notice that I said in formal written English because I can say informal and informal as one word. يبقى هنا in space formal لو كتبت in وسبت مسافة وformal يبقى أنا هنا بتكلم على حاجة رسمي أو الإنجليش بصيغة رسمية. لكن لو informal هي one word لو كلمة واحدة دي معناها شيء غير رسمي يعني حاجة ما بين الأصدقاء مثلا. So informal written English, whom can be used instead of who after prepositions in sentences like the person from whom I received the letter is the manager of the company. We use who in informal English, like for example, the person who I received the letter from is the manager of the company. So basically في اللغة الرسمية بنستخدم who، في اللغة الانفورمال بنستخدم الانفورمال بنستخدم who عادي جدا. Non-defining relative clauses give us more information or extra information. Omar, who is not, Omar, who is an activist, lives next door. This photo, which I took, shows our school. Last but not least, Aswan, which is in the south of Egypt, is where I was born. I wanted to have a look at the common errors. For example, London, which is the capital of Britain, is in the south of England. أنا هنا مش بتكلم I'm not talking about London as a place that I'm doing something in. لا أنا بتكلم I'm describing London. أنا هنا بوصف لندن عشان كده قلت which عادي جدا. ليه بقى؟ لأن هنا which refers to the thing or the place. لكن لو أنا هتكلم على حاجة أنا بعملها في لندن يبقى I can say where. For example, London is the city where I work. London is the city where I live. يبقى أنا هنا بعمل حاجة في المكان ده يبقى بالتالي هستخدم where عادي. But if I'm describing London as a city, for example, or a place, I can say which. لأن طبعا انتوا ممكن بالتسرع الاقي لندن ده مكان اروح حاطه وير على طول او مختاره وير على طول. لا هنا لندن او اي مكان whatever it is يبقى I have to think about it. If there is an action that I do inside this place ففي الحالة دي هستخدم مثلا where. If I'm describing the place as something so it's which. Hatem's uncle who is a doctor lives in Cairo. Of course, we don't repeat the pronoun. Okay, so who is a doctor, and that's it. Because the pronoun it replaces the relative pronoun replace the pronoun. يبقى relative pronoun ده اصلا بنستبدل بيه البروناون الاصلي اللي في الجمله. We don't repeat. So we don't say Hatem's uncle who he is a doctor. We just say Hatem's uncle who is a doctor. Amedi Ali, let's get some sort of practice. Amedi Ali is an Egyptian Paralympic power lifter that has won a bronze medal. So, of course, she's a person. So, who has won a bronze medal? Number two, a charity activist is someone who campaigns for change in the world. Of course, the activist is the person. That's why we use who. Let's move on to number three. We are a charity which campaigns for equal opportunities for disabled people. This is the lift which can take you up to the fourth floor. Powerlifting is a sport which is popular in Egypt. Last but not least, I am a person who wants to make a real difference in the world. Let's move on to lesson three. And I want you to think about complaints or الشكاوى. ازاي أنا ممكن أعبر عن شكوى معينة. How can I complain in English? But before we start, I want you to think about some complaints to your neighbor in a shop or in a hotel or a restaurant. يعني أنا لو بشتكي أو بقول شكوى معينة لجاري مثلا. uh, what are you going to complain about؟ هتشتكي عن إيه أو بخصوص إيه؟ If you are in a shop or in a hotel or restaurant, are you going to complain about the service, for example؟ هتشتكي من الخدمة المقدمة لينا في المكان ده. All right, so here we have three conversations where one person is making a complaint and the other person is responding to the complaint. Again, excuse my voice. So one of the people is complaining, واحد بيشتكي والتاني is responding to this complaint. So there is a problem with the audio file in this slide. So let me read the transcript for you. So we have conversation number one. Lama is talking to the assistant. Excuse me, I would like to make a complaint. My phone doesn't work. The assistant, I do apologize. I do apologize. Perhaps we can repair it. So this is conversation number one. Number two, I'm sorry to bother you, but you are very tall and I cannot see the plane. I'm sorry about that. I will change places with my wife. She is shorter. Number three, and this is the last one. I would like to speak to the manager, please. I'm afraid he's out at the moment. Can I help you? Yes, the problem is that my meat is undercooked. I'm sorry about that. We will give you a new meal. طبعا he has a problem with the meal here. So here I want you to think about the expressions that we use in order to make complaints or give or respond politely. نرد بأدب, for example. So here, excuse me, I would like, excuse me, I would like to make a complaint. So here, I would like to. So these are some of the expressions or the language functions, so to speak. excuse me, I would like to make a complaint. أنا عايزة أشتكي أو عندي شكوى معينة. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to bother you, but the music is really loud, for example. So here I'm apologizing for the people in order not to bother them عشان ما ازعجهمش, but the music is really loud. I would like to speak to the manager, please. So even when you complain, we have like a polite way to complain. So we can say, excuse me, I'm sorry, or end with please. Polite responses, like for example, I do apologize. And usually when we say, for example, I do apologize or I do believe, whenever we use do, لما نستخدم do في أي جملة, ده معناها we are, it's some sort of confirmation and affirmation. أنا بأكد على المعلومة دي. I do apologize. I do apologize. أنا فعلا بعتذر أو بعتذر جدا جدا عن الحاجة دي. I'm sorry about that. I'm afraid she's out at the moment. طبعا هنا afraid ملهاش أي علاقة بالخوف خالص. I'm afraid يعني زي I'm sorry. When I say I'm sorry, I'm afraid she's out. Can I help you? ممكن أساعدك? I'm sorry about that. Perhaps we can book a taxi for you, or we can ask for a new mobile phone, or ask for a new meal, or prepare a new meal for you, and so on. So I want you to think about jobs that you would like to do in the future. So before we start with lesson 4, let's wrap up the first 3 lessons or the topics that we can write or talk about. We can talk about Olympic Games or Paralympic Games, or people who are disabled and how they contribute or take part in these competitions. Uh, if you remember the part when we were talking about Ibrahim Hamato and, for example, Taha Hussein and so Fatma Omar, so we can think about who are those people, where they live, if they have a job, what do they do for living, for example, and so on. What are the sports that they are playing, and so on. Here, another topic that we can write about or think about: what job would you like to do in the future and why? And is there a company you would like to work for and why as well? So, for example, you can write an essay about jobs in the future. So, you will maybe you can talk about your hobbies, your or the things that you are good at. حاجة اللي أنا شاطر فيها ومتميز فيها جدا. What what job that I would like to be. هختار ايه الوظيفة وليه طبعا why. And if there is a certain place that I want to work in, or if you would like to travel abroad or apply for a scholarship, live or study abroad, and so on. So here you have an email. Of course, in the exam, most likely we have essays. We write essays, but you need to think about the email and how it is written. So read this email from a disabled person who is looking for a job. Label the parts of the email with the words or phrases in the box. Of course, here we have number 1, the close or sign off, اللي هي نهاية الإيميل. What the email is about. Number 3, the greeting or opening. This is how you start the email. Requests, الطلب. Finally, the reason why you are writing this email. Let's have a look at the email. So, dear sir or madam, this is how we start the email. This is the greeting. I'm writing because I would like to apply for a job at your company. However, I have a disability and I need to use a wheelchair. Could you tell me if your company is suitable for disabled employees? Do you have any ramps or and lifts? Do your staff receive training in how to support disabled colleagues? Uh, if your company would like to would be suitable for a disabled person like me, I will apply for a job in the sales department, which I am qualified for. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Kind regards, Christine Harrison. If you look at the first part, of course, from Christine Harrison, this is the name of the person, to info@crispins.com, this is the name of the company. Subject is the topic or what I am trying to say or what I'm talking about. So here, dear sir or madam, this is how we start. This is the greeting, or the opening, how we start the email. I'm writing because I would like to apply for a job. Of course, this is the reason why you are writing the email. Tell me, of course, this is a request. If your company would be suitable for a disabled person, I will apply for a job in the sales department. So this is what is the email is all about. This is number 2. Finally, we end the email by saying, I look forward to hearing from you. This is the closing or sign off, and I am ending my email, or I end my email. Finally, kind regards or best regards, Christine Harrison. Of course, this is an email, but if you cross out or we change the format, لو غيرنا الصياغة بتاعته وترتيبه, we can develop it in an essay into an essay form, for example. يعني ممكن نغير شكل الايميل، يعني المحتوى بتاعه هو ونغير الشكل بتاعه تماما ونحوله لاساي مثلا. يبقى انا I am applying for a job in a company, for example. So these are the things that I need to think about or ask about. Okay, so this is an email, but you can develop it or change the format in order to be an essay or any other type of writing or way of writing. So some sort of practice, or maybe you can do it as a homework. So imagine that you have a disability and you would like to apply for a job. Make notes and think about these points. What's your disability? What do you want to know about the company? What will you do if the company is suitable for you? Again, this is exactly the same idea that I was talking about. So you can get some sort of ideas like this one and try to maybe develop it in another way. So we come to the end of today's unit. If you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat. And again, excuse my voice, and I'm sorry for that. I'm very sick. So this is Wahid. I wish you all the best, and I hope you do your best for the exams and get ready for them. And if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat. Or if you are watching the video, you can leave a comment down below.